The bitter taste of lukewarm coffee lingered on my tongue as I stared at my reflection in the cafe window, practicing what I hoped looked like a confident smile. My fingers trembled slightly as I adjusted my second-hand blazer for the third time in 10 minutes, the fabric rough against my skin, compared to the silk blouses I used to wear. The glass reflected back a woman I barely recognized. Hollow cheekbones, where there used to be fullness, dark circles under eyes that once sparkled with possibility, and a forced smile that didn't quite reach those same tired eyes. I had exactly $43.67 in my checking account. Rent was due in 5 days, and my morning sickness had been replaced by an all-day nausea that made keeping food down a constant battle. The baby, our baby, was still my secret, hidden beneath loose clothing and careful posture. 23 years old, a business administration degree that felt worthless in my hands, and pregnant by a man whose world I'd fled from 6 months ago. The Steam and Bean Café hummed with the quiet desperation of job seekers and the caffeinated ambition of those who still believed in their futures. I'd chosen this spot 3 blocks from the downtown job fair because it was cheap, relatively clean, and had these large windows that served as impromptu mirrors. The elderly barista, Margaret, had started recognizing me after my 3rd day of ordering the same small coffee and making it last for 2 hours while I prepped for interviews. "You're going to do fine, honey," Margaret had whispered that morning, sliding an extra pastry across the counter without charging me. "I can see the strength in you, even if you can't see it yourself." The wooden chair creaked under me as I shifted, unconsciously placing a protective hand over my still flat stomach. The gesture had become automatic, a silent promise to the life growing inside me that I would figure this out. We would survive this. I had to believe that because the alternative, crawling back to my mother who disowned me for bringing shame on the family, or worse, trying to find Dante, wasn't an option. I pulled out my phone and reviewed my notes one more time. 3 interviews lined up at the Marriott downtown. Administrative assistant positions, all paying just enough to cover rent and groceries if I was careful. If I was very, very careful. The smell of fresh pastries made my stomach clench with hunger, but I'd already spent my food budget for the day on this coffee. The morning sunlight streamed through the window, highlighting the fine lines of stress that had appeared around my eyes over the past 6 months. I practiced my handshake in my lap, making sure it was firm but not desperate. Eye contact, smile, shoulders back, project confidence even when your world is falling apart. The business courses I'd taken felt like they belonged to someone else's life now. Olivia Bennett, I whispered to my reflection, testing how my name sounded with conviction. Olivia Bennett, administrative professional. The words felt foreign on my tongue. 6 months ago, I'd been Olivia Salvatore to be, living in a penthouse, wearing clothes that cost more than most people's cars. Now I was just another struggling graduate hoping someone would take a chance on me. A sharp pain shot through my lower back as I stood to gather my things. The stress, the cheap mattress at my studio apartment, the constant worry, it was all taking its toll. I moved carefully, mindful of the life I was protecting, and made my way toward the door. The morning air carried the scent of rain and possibility as I walked the 3 blocks to the Marriott. My heels, purchased from a discount store but polished to look presentable, clicked against the sidewalk with what I hoped sounded like confidence. Other job seekers moved around me with varying degrees of desperation and hope painted on their faces. The Marriott's lobby overwhelmed my senses with its marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and the kind of opulence I'd grown accustomed to in my previous life. For a moment, muscle memory took over, and I moved through the space with the grace of someone who belonged there. The receptionist directed me to the mezzanine level where the job fair was being held. Companies had set up booths throughout the elegant space, each one representing a potential lifeline. I approached the first booth, Henderson & Associates, a mid-sized accounting firm looking for administrative support. The interviewer, a sharp-looking woman in her 40s, reviewed my resume with practiced efficiency. "Your qualifications look good, Ms. Bennett," she said, "but there's a 6-month gap in your employment history. Can you explain that?" The question I'd been dreading. "I was dealing with some personal matters that have since been resolved," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "I'm ready to fully commit to a position now." She nodded non-committally and handed me a business card. "We'll be in touch." The second interview went similarly. Polite interest followed by the same question about my employment gap. I was beginning to feel the familiar weight of rejection settling in my chest when I approached the third booth. "Bennett Hospitality Group," the banner read, and my heart stopped. Bennett was my maiden name, but surely this was just a coincidence. The man behind the table was younger than the previous interviewers, probably early 30s, with kind eyes and an easy smile. "Good morning," he said, extending his hand. "I'm James Chen, HR Director for Bennett Hospitality. And you are?" "Olivia Bennett," I managed, still stunned by the coincidence of the name. "Bennett?" He raised an eyebrow with interest. "Any relation to the Hotel Bennetts?" "No," I said quickly, "just a coincidence." He laughed warmly. "Well, coincidence or not, let's see what you can offer Bennett Hospitality." The interview went better than the previous two. James seemed genuinely interested in my background, and when he asked about my employment gap, I gave the same prepared answer. This time, however, he didn't seem to view it as a red flag. "We have an immediate opening for an executive assistant position," he said. "The pay is competitive, full benefits, and there's room for growth. The position would be supporting one of our VIP clients who conducts business from his private suite. Are you comfortable working in high-end hospitality environments?" "Absolutely," I replied, thinking of my previous life. "I'm very comfortable in those settings." "Excellent. There's just one more step. The client likes to personally approve all staff who will be working closely with him. He's actually here today for a business lunch. Would you be available for a brief introduction?" My instincts should have warned me. The too good to be true nature of the opportunity, the personal approval requirement, the way James seemed almost too eager to move forward. But desperation has a way of drowning out intuition, and I needed this job more than I needed to listen to the small voice telling me something wasn't right. "Of course," I heard myself saying. "I'd be happy to meet with him." As James led me toward the private dining area of the hotel, I caught my reflection one more time in the polished brass doors. The smile I'd practiced all morning was finally genuine, born of hope rather than desperation. I was about to meet the man who could change everything. I had no idea how right I was. James led me through the hotel's opulent corridors, past oil paintings that probably cost more than my yearly salary and marble sculptures that belonged in museums. The private dining area was sectioned off from the main restaurant by frosted glass panels that offered privacy while maintaining an air of exclusivity. My heels sank slightly into the plush carpet as we approached a mahogany door marked "Private." "Mr. Salvatore prefers to conduct his meetings in complete privacy," James explained, his hand on the door handle. "He's very particular about discretion." The name hit me like a physical blow. Salvatore, it couldn't be. There had to be dozens of Salvatores in the city, hundreds even. But my hands began to tremble, and that familiar protective instinct made me place my palm over my stomach. "Actually," I started, taking a step back. "Maybe this isn't the right fit." But James had already opened the door, and the voice that emerged from within froze the blood in my veins. "Send her in, James. We're old friends." Dante's voice, rich and commanding, carried the same dangerous undertone that had once made my pulse race for entirely different reasons. James stepped aside with a knowing smile that made my stomach drop. This wasn't a coincidence. None of it was. I forced my feet forward, each step feeling like I was walking toward the edge of a cliff. The private dining room was exactly what I'd expected. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a table set for two with crystal glasses and silver that caught the afternoon light. And there, rising from his chair like a predator, acknowledging his prey, was Dante Salvatore. 6 months hadn't diminished his presence. If anything, he seemed more formidable than before. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his charcoal suit tailored to emphasize the broad shoulders and lean build I'd once traced with reverent fingers. But it was his eyes, those penetrating dark eyes that had once looked at me with something approaching tenderness, that held me captive now with their cold calculation. "Hello, Olivia." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Please sit. We have much to discuss." "I can't," my voice cracked. "I have to go." "I'm afraid that's not possible." His tone remained conversational, but there was steel beneath the silk. "You see, Bennett Hospitality Group is one of my acquisitions. Has been for 3 months now. James works for me. This job fair? I arranged it specifically to bring you here." The room seemed to spin around me. "You've been watching me. Watching, protecting, ensuring your safety." He moved around the table with the fluid grace of a man accustomed to complete control. "Did you really think you could disappear from my life so completely? That I wouldn't know about your struggles? Your empty bank account? Your pathetic studio apartment in that neighborhood where I wouldn't let my enemies live?" Heat flushed my cheeks. "You had no right." "I had every right." He was close now, close enough that I could smell his cologne, the expensive scent that used to make me feel safe and desired. Now it made me feel trapped, especially considering what you're carrying. My hand flew to my stomach instinctively, and his eyes followed the movement with satisfaction. He knew. Of course he knew. "Sit down, Olivia." It wasn't a request. My legs felt weak, whether from the confrontation or the pregnancy, I couldn't tell. I sank into the offered chair, accepting the glass of water he poured for me with shaking hands. "How long have you known?" I whispered. "About the pregnancy?" 6 weeks. He resumed his seat across from me, pouring himself a glass of wine with steady hands. "About your location? From the moment you thought you'd disappeared, did you really believe that pathetic disguise would fool my people? The brown hair dye, the second-hand clothes, the fake references? The job interviews, all legitimate companies, all owned by me or by people who owe me favors. I wanted to see how far you'd fallen, how desperate you'd become." He took a sip of wine, studying me over the rim. "I have to admit, I'm impressed by your resilience. 6 months of scraping by when all you had to do was come home." "Home?" The word came out as a bitter laugh. "You mean prison." "I mean protection." His voice hardened. "Do you have any idea what could have happened to you out there? Carrying my child while living in that neighborhood, working multiple jobs, too proud to ask for help?" "Your child?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. Something dangerous flickered in his eyes. "Did you think I wouldn't know? That I wouldn't do the math? 24 weeks along, Olivia, conceived the night before you ran from me like a frightened child. The memory of that night crashed over me, our last night together, when I'd been blissfully unaware of the phone call that would come the next morning. The call that would reveal exactly who Dante Salvatore really was, and what lengths he would go to protect what he considered his. "I had my reasons for leaving," I said quietly. "Your reasons were based on fear and misunderstanding." He leaned forward, his intensity filling the space between us. "But we can discuss that later. Right now, we need to address your current situation." A soft knock interrupted us, and James entered carrying a leather portfolio. "The contracts you requested, Mr. Salvatore." Dante accepted the folder without taking his eyes off me. "As I was saying, your current situation is unacceptable. Living in squalor, risking the health of my child, working yourself to exhaustion. It ends today." He slid the portfolio across the table. Inside, you'll find an employment contract. Executive assistant, as advertised. Salary of $200,000 annually, full benefits, housing provided. All you have to do is sign. My hands shook as I opened the folder. The contract was real, professionally drafted, and the salary figure made my eyes widen. It was more money than I'd ever imagined earning, enough to provide everything my baby would need. "What's the catch?" I asked, though I was already afraid of the answer. "The catch is that you'll be working exclusively for me, living in accommodations I provide, under my protection." His smile was sharp as a blade. "Consider it a very generous maternity leave program." "You mean house arrest?" "I mean safety. There are people who would hurt you to get to me, Olivia. People who wouldn't hesitate to harm an innocent child to send me a message." He stood, moving to the window with his hands clasped behind his back. "Your independence is a luxury neither you nor my child can afford. And if I refuse?" He turned back to me, and for a moment, I saw a flash of the man I'd fallen in love with. Protective, vulnerable, desperate. Then the mask slipped back into place. "Then you'll discover that your apartment lease has been terminated, your job applications have been mysteriously withdrawn, and your financial aid for school has been suspended pending investigation. You'll also find that no legitimate employer in this city will hire you." He paused, letting the words sink in. "I can make your life very comfortable, Olivia, or I can make it very difficult. The choice is yours." The baby fluttered inside me, a reminder of the life I was responsible for. Dante watched my internal struggle with the patience of a predator who already knew the outcome. 24 hours, he said finally. "Think it over. James will escort you home, and tomorrow evening you'll give me your answer." As I stood to leave, my legs unsteady beneath me, he spoke again. "Olivia?" I turned back reluctantly. "Welcome home." The words followed me out of the room like a promise, and a threat rolled into one. The black sedan waited outside my building the next evening, its tinted windows reflecting the neon signs from the convenience store across the street. I'd spent 24 hours pacing my tiny apartment, weighing my impossible options, feeling the baby's increasingly active movements as if it sensed my distress. Every kick reminded me that this decision wasn't just about me anymore. Marco, Dante's driver and bodyguard, stepped out as I approached. His expression was neutral, but I caught a flicker of something. Pity? In his dark eyes as he opened the rear door for me. "Miss Reyes," he said formally. Using the surname I'd been hiding behind, "Mr. Salvatore is waiting." The drive to the penthouse took us through the city's most exclusive district, past buildings where I'd once attended charity galas and business dinners as Dante's companion. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was returning to this world through the service entrance of my former life. The penthouse occupied the entire 42nd floor of the Meridian Tower, a testament to Dante's empire that stretched far beyond legitimate business dealings. As the private elevator climbed, my ears popped, and with each floor, I felt my old life pulling me back into its orbit. Dante waited in his study, the room where I'd first discovered the true nature of his business 6 months ago. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined the walls, filled with first editions and legal texts that mask the true source of his wealth. Behind his desk, hidden behind a false panel I'd accidentally discovered, lay documents that had shattered my naive perceptions of the man I thought I loved. He looked up from his laptop as I entered, his expression unreadable. "You came. Did I have a choice?" "There's always a choice, Olivia. The question is whether you're brave enough to make the right one." He gestured to the chair across from his desk, the same chair where I'd sat 6 months ago while he explained why I needed to disappear for my own safety. I remained standing. "I want to negotiate the terms." Something that might have been approval flickered in his eyes. "I'm listening." "If I do this, if I sign your contract, I want guarantees. About the baby, about my freedom, about what happens after." "After?" After the baby is born. After whatever threat you're protecting us from is neutralized. After you decide you don't need me anymore. My voice grew stronger with each word. I want an exit strategy. Dante leaned back in his chair, studying me with the intensity of a chess master, calculating his next move. You think this is temporary? I think you're a man who takes what he wants and discards what he doesn't need. I've seen how you operate, Dante. I've seen the bodies. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Bodies? The memory crashed over me like a wave. The phone call I'd overheard 6 months ago. Dante's voice calm and cold as he ordered someone's elimination. Not just business, but personal. Visceral. The moment I realized the man I loved was capable of murder without hesitation. The night before I left, I whispered. Vincent Torres. I heard you give the order. Dante's face transformed, becoming a mask of dangerous calm. You heard wrong. I heard you tell Marco to handle the Torres problem permanently. I heard you say that examples needed to be made. My hands clenched at my sides. The next morning, Vincent Torres was found dead in the harbor. Vincent Torres was a traitor who threatened innocent lives, including yours. Dante stood, moving around the desk with predatory grace. He was selling information about my operations to rival families, information that included your identity, your routine, your vulnerabilities. So you had him killed. I protected what was mine. He stopped in front of me, close enough that I could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. Just as I'm protecting you now, by imprisoning me, by keeping you alive. His voice carried a raw edge that made my breath catch. Do you want to know what the Torres family planned to do to you? How they intended to hurt me through you? I didn't answer, but something in my expression must have given away my curiosity because he continued. They were going to take you, torture you, send me pieces of you until I agreed to their terms. His hand reached up to trace my cheek, the gentle touch at odds with his brutal words. They were going to start with your fingers, work their way up to more vital parts. My stomach lurched, and I stepped back from his touch. You're trying to scare me. I'm trying to save you. He pulled out his phone, scrolling to a photo that made my blood run cold. This was taken 3 days ago, outside your apartment. The image showed a man in a dark jacket, clearly watching my building from across the street. Even in the grainy surveillance photo, I could see the professional alertness of someone conducting reconnaissance. The Torres family didn't die with Vincent, Dante continued. His brothers have spent 6 months planning their revenge. They know about the baby, Olivia. They know it's mine. How could they know? I barely knew myself 6 months ago. Because Vincent had been watching us for weeks before I discovered his betrayal. He documented everything. Our relationship, your habits, even the morning sickness that you thought you were hiding so well. Dante's expression softened slightly. He sold that information before I could stop him. The room spun around me, and I gripped the edge of his desk for support. The baby is why you're going to sign that contract and accept my protection without any more arguments about freedom and exit strategies. He returned to his chair, but his posture remained tense. Because if anything happens to either of you, Olivia, I will burn this entire city to the ground. And after, when the threat is over, there will always be another threat. This is my world, and now it's yours too. He opened the contract again, sliding it across the desk with a gold pen. Sign it. What about love? The question slipped out before I could stop it, revealing the heartbreak I'd been carrying for 6 months. For a moment, his careful composure cracked, and I saw something raw and desperate in his eyes. Love is what got us into this mess. Love is what made me careless enough to let Vincent get close. Love is what made you brave enough to run from me when you should have trusted me. Love is what made you lie to me for 8 months about who you really were. Love is what's keeping you alive right now. He stood again, moving to the window that overlooked the city, spread out below us like a glittering kingdom. I've told you more truth in the last 10 minutes than I've told anyone in years. The contract isn't just about protection, Olivia. It's about making you understand that there's no running from this. From us. I stared at the contract, the weight of impossible choices pressing down on me. My hand moved to my stomach, feeling the flutter of movement that reminded me this decision would affect more than just my future. If I sign this, what happens to me? To who I used to be? Olivia Bennett disappears completely. You become someone else. Someone safe. He turned back to me, his expression gentle but implacable. Someone mine. The pen felt heavy in my hand as I picked it up. And if I refuse? Then you spend the rest of your very short life looking over your shoulder, waiting for the Torres brothers to decide they're tired of waiting. His voice carried absolute certainty. Sign the contract, Olivia. Let me protect you both. The baby kicked as if in agreement, and with a shaking hand, I signed away my freedom to save our lives. The contract became effective immediately. Within hours of my signature, a team of movers had emptied my studio apartment while I watched from the passenger seat of Dante's Mercedes. My few possessions, clothes that had seen better days, books from college, the single photo I had of my parents before everything fell apart, disappeared into boxes that would be delivered to my new home. Your cousin Sophia called, Dante mentioned casually as we drove through the city's financial district. She was worried when you didn't show up for your lunch date. My blood chilled. Sophia was the only family member who still spoke to me after my mother's dramatic disownment. You contacted my family? I had Marco explain that you'd accepted a live-in position with better accommodations and limited outside communication during your probationary period. His tone was matter-of-fact, as if he hadn't just systematically cut another tie to my former life. She was relieved to hear you'd found steady employment. You can't just isolate me from everyone I care about. I can and I will, when their safety depends on it. He glanced at me, his expression softening slightly at what must have been visible distress on my face. Sophia received a generous donation to her children's medical fund. Anonymous, of course. Her youngest daughter's surgery is now fully covered. The manipulation was breathtaking in its efficiency. He'd turned my family's gratitude into another layer of control, ensuring their unwitting cooperation in my isolation. You bastard. I prefer thorough. The Mercedes pulled into an underground garage beneath a building I didn't recognize. Welcome to your new home. The building was elegant, but understated, the kind of place that whispered wealth, rather than shouting it. The elevator required a key card to access the upper floors, and when the doors opened on the 28th floor, I found myself in a private foyer that served only one apartment. Penthouse living has its advantages, Dante said, using his key to open the heavy oak door. Privacy, security, and most importantly, complete control over who comes and goes. The apartment was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of the city, while the interior design managed to be both luxurious and comfortable. It was decorated in soft neutrals with touches of warm gold, creating an atmosphere that was elegant, but not intimidating. Someone had clearly given considerable thought to making this space feel like a home rather than a prison. The master suite is through here, Dante said, leading me down a hallway lined with original artwork. I've had everything prepared according to your preferences. My preferences? You always complained that your apartment got too much morning light. These windows face west, so you can sleep until noon if you choose. He opened a door to reveal a bedroom that took my breath away. The mattress is memory foam, extra firm, the way you liked it. The bathroom has a soaking tub deep enough for you to float in. The attention to detail was unsettling. These weren't educated guesses. They were intimate knowledge gathered over months of careful observation. In the walk-in closet, I found not only my old clothes, but an entirely new wardrobe in my exact size, including maternity wear in styles I would have chosen for myself. "How long have you been planning this?" I asked, running my fingers over a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "Since the day you left." He leaned against the doorframe, watching my reaction. "I've spent 6 months perfecting every detail, ensuring your comfort and safety. And if I had never agreed, if I'd chosen to struggle on my own, then all of this would have been wasted effort." His smile was sharp. "But I know you better than you know yourself, Olivia. I knew you'd eventually see reason." A wave of nausea washed over me, whether from pregnancy or the claustrophobic realization of how thoroughly planned this all was. I couldn't tell. I sat heavily on the edge of the massive bed, feeling the mattress contour to support my body exactly as he'd promised. "I need some air," I said weakly. "The balcony doors are through here." He led me to French doors that opened onto a private terrace overlooking the city. The evening breeze carried the scent of rain and car exhaust, the familiar smells of freedom I was already beginning to miss. "Beautiful view," I said, gripping the railing. 28 floors up. Too high to jump, but perfect for watching the world below. His voice carried a casual menace that made my skin crawl. "Not that you'd ever consider anything so foolish, especially in your condition." I turned to face him, studying the man who had once been my entire world. "Do you enjoy this? Having this much control over another person's life?" "I enjoy keeping you safe." He moved closer, his presence overwhelming in the confined space of the balcony. "I enjoy knowing that when I wake up tomorrow, you'll still be alive, that my child will be born healthy and protected. Your child. Always your child. What about what I want?" "What you want is irrelevant when weighed against what you need." His hand came up to cup my face, the gesture tender despite his harsh words. "You need security, medical care, protection from threats you can't even imagine. You need someone strong enough to make the hard decisions when you're too emotional to think clearly." "I need my freedom." "Freedom is an illusion, Olivia. You were never free. Not when you were with me before, not during these past 6 months of struggling alone, and not now. The only difference is that now your cage is gilded and your keeper loves you." The words hung between us like a confession and a threat. Before I could respond, the sound of a key in the front door interrupted us. "That will be Maria," Dante said, stepping back from me. "She'll be handling your day-to-day needs, meals, appointments, anything you require." An older woman entered the apartment carrying grocery bags, her expression warm but professional. She looked to be in her 50s, with kind eyes and the efficient manner of someone accustomed to caring for others. "Miss Olivia," she said with a slight accent I couldn't place. "I've brought dinner. The doctor said you need to eat more protein." "Doctor?" I looked between Maria and Dante. "Dr. Chen will be by tomorrow for your first appointment. She's the best obstetrician in the city, and she'll be monitoring your pregnancy from now on." Dante checked his watch. "I have a business dinner tonight, but Maria will get you settled." "You're leaving?" "I'm giving you time to adjust." He kissed my forehead, the gesture so familiar it made my chest ache. "Don't try to leave, Olivia. The building has excellent security, and my people have strict instructions about your safety." After he left, Maria busied herself in the kitchen, preparing a meal that smelled wonderful despite my continued nausea. "He's a good man," she said, as she arranged food on fine china. "Difficult, yes, but good. He loves you very much." "Love doesn't justify imprisonment." Maria's hands stilled as she looked at me with something like pity. "My daughter married for love once. Romantic love. Passionate love. He beat her unconscious and left her in the hospital while he gambled away their rent money. She resumed her work, her voice matter of fact. Now she's married to a man who protects her, provides for her, treats her like precious china. She says she's happier with security than she ever was with passion. That's different. Is it? Maria set the plate in front of me, the food arranged like artwork. Eat. The baby needs nutrition, and you need strength for what's coming. What's coming? But Maria had already moved on to other tasks, leaving me alone with my thoughts, and the growing realization that this beautiful apartment was exactly what Dante had called it. A gilded cage, perfect in every detail except for the one thing that mattered most. I was trapped, and the man who claimed to love me held the only key. 3 weeks into my new life, I began to understand the true scope of Dante's empire. What I'd initially dismissed as overprotective control revealed itself as a vast network of surveillance, influence, and power that extended far beyond anything I'd imagined during our previous relationship. It started with small things. The barista at the coffee shop on the corner knew my order before I spoke it, despite never having seen me before. The doorman at the building across the street nodded respectfully when I passed during my supervised walks with Maria. The taxi driver who picked us up from the doctor's office refused my money, saying the fare had already been handled. How many people work for him? I asked Maria as we returned from yet another medical appointment, this one with a nutritionist, who had detailed charts of my eating habits. Work for him? Or work with him? Maria's distinction was careful, practiced. Mr. Salvatore has many business relationships throughout the city. That's not what I mean, and you know it. She sighed, adjusting her purse as we entered the building's marble lobby. Miss Olivia, there are some questions that are better left unasked. But I was beyond caring about better judgment. The pregnancy hormones, the enforced isolation, and the growing realization of my circumstances had stripped away my patience for diplomatic non-answers. That evening, when Dante arrived for his nightly check-in, I was ready for confrontation. I want to know exactly how large your operation is, I said without preamble as he entered the apartment. He paused in the act of loosening his tie, studying my face with the calculating expression that had once fascinated me and now made my skin crawl. That's a dangerous question. I'm already in danger. I'm carrying the child of a man whose enemies want to use me as leverage. The least you can do is tell me what I'm really dealing with. You're dealing with protection and security. Nothing else concerns you. Everything concerns me. The words exploded out of me with months of suppressed frustration. I can't go anywhere without being watched. I can't make a phone call without someone listening. I can't even order takeout without it being vetted through your people. I'm living in a beautiful prison, and I don't even know who the warden really is. Dante set down his briefcase with deliberate care, his movements precise in the way they became when he was controlling his temper. You want to know who I am? You want the complete truth? Yes. Are you certain? Because once you know, there's no going back to comfortable ignorance. The baby kicked inside me, as if sensing the tension in the room. I placed my hand over the movement, drawing strength from the life we'd created together. I'm certain. He moved to the bar cart, pouring himself 2 fingers of whiskey before speaking. I control 70% of the import business on the eastern seaboard. Not just the legitimate imports, everything. Drugs, weapons, art, people. If it comes through a port from Atlantic City to Boston, I get a percentage. People? Human trafficking is lucrative, though not my preference. I focus primarily on high-end goods and pharmaceuticals. He took a sip of whiskey, his tone as casual as if he were discussing stock portfolios. I employ approximately 300 people directly, with another 1,000 who work for businesses under my umbrella. Politicians, judges, police commissioners, they all owe me favors or receive regular compensation for their cooperation. The room spun around me as the true magnitude of his operations sank in. 300 people. 300 people who depend on me for their livelihoods, who trust me to make decisions that keep them alive and their families safe. He moved closer, and I caught the familiar scent of his cologne mixed with something darker, the weight of power and violence that clung to him like smoke. Including you. I never asked for this protection. You never had to. The moment you conceived my child, you became part of this world whether you wanted it or not. His hand reached out to touch my stomach, the gesture possessive and gentle simultaneously. Do you understand now why running away was pointless? Why your little apartment and minimum wage jobs were never going to keep you safe? What about the Torres family? Is that threat even real? His expression darkened. Show her, Marco. I hadn't heard the other man enter, but Marco materialized from the foyer, carrying a manila envelope. Inside were photographs that made my blood run cold. Surveillance shots of me taken over the past month, including ones from this very apartment through a telephoto lens. They've been watching you since you moved in here, Dante explained, waiting for you to establish a routine, looking for vulnerabilities in our security. How is that possible? This building is supposed to be secure. Security can be compromised if you have enough money and motivation. He pulled out another photograph, this one showing a man in maintenance coveralls entering the building. Miguel Torres, Vincent's youngest brother. He got hired as part of the cleaning crew 2 weeks ago. What does he want? What they all want. To hurt me through you. Dante's voice carried a cold rage that made me step back instinctively. But yesterday, Miguel made a mistake. He got impatient and tried to plant a listening device in the apartment directly above this one. What happened to him? He's no longer a concern. The casual way he said it, the dismissive tone that treated another human life as a minor inconvenience, reminded me exactly who I was dealing with. You killed him. I protected what's mine. He finished his whiskey and set the glass down with a sharp clink. Just as I'll kill anyone else who threatens my family. Is that what we are? Family? You're the mother of my child. That makes you more important than family. It makes you essential. He moved to the window, looking out at the city lights. The Torres brothers have 2 choices now. They can accept that their vendetta against me will cost them everything and everyone they care about, or they can continue this foolish campaign and watch me systematically destroy their entire bloodline. And me? What are my choices? You can embrace this life and the protection it offers, or you can continue fighting against reality until it breaks you. He turned back to me, his expression softer, but no less implacable. I'd prefer the former, but I'll accept the latter if necessary. What if I tried to leave again? Then you'd discover that your new identity comes with certain limitations. Credit cards that can be frozen, bank accounts that can be emptied, documents that can be invalidated with a single phone call. His smile was sharp as a blade. I told you before, Olivia. I know you better than you know yourself. I know you'll choose our child's safety over your own pride. Maria appeared in the doorway, her timing too perfect to be coincidental. Dinner is ready, she announced. The doctor said you need to eat regularly for the baby's development. As I followed them to the dining room, I caught sight of my reflection in the dark window. The woman staring back at me looked like someone I'd never met. Well-dressed, well-fed, and completely trapped. The baby moved inside me, a reminder that every decision I made now affected more than just my own future. Dante pulled out my chair with the courtesy of a perfect gentleman, and I sat down to dinner with a man who controlled hundreds of lives and treated murder as a business expense. The food was exquisite, the conversation polite, and the cage around me tightened with every passing moment. I was no longer Olivia Bennett, struggling graduate. I was something else entirely, a protected asset in a criminal empire, valuable only as long as I carried his air and caused no trouble. And the most terrifying part was that I was beginning to find comfort in the certainty of it all. The call came at 3 a.m, 6 weeks after Miguel Torres had stopped being a concern. I woke to the sound of Dante's phone buzzing insistently on the nightstand, followed by his sharp intake of breath as he read the message. "What is it?" I asked, instinctively placing my hands over my now prominent belly. At 36 weeks, the baby had become an active presence, constantly reminding me of the life growing inside me and the stakes that grew higher with each passing day. Get dressed. Now. Dante was already moving, pulling on clothes with military efficiency. Maria! The older woman appeared in the doorway within seconds, alert despite the hour. Her ability to respond so quickly no longer surprised me. I'd learned that everyone in Dante's orbit lived in a constant state of readiness. The safe house, Dante said tersely. Everything we discussed. Maria nodded and disappeared, returning moments later with a bag I'd never seen before, but which clearly contained clothes and essentials packed for exactly this scenario. Come, Miss Olivia. Quickly now. What's happening? I struggled to get out of bed, my body awkward and heavy with pregnancy. The Torres brothers made their move. Dante helped me to my feet, his hands gentle despite the urgency in his voice. They took Sophia. The words hit me like a physical blow. My cousin? But you said... I said we'd handled Miguel. Luis and Carlos are smarter, more patient. He guided me toward the door while I tried to process the implications. They've been watching your family for weeks, waiting for the right moment. Is she hurt? Not yet. They want to trade her for you. His jaw was tight with controlled rage. They think they can force my hand by threatening an innocent woman. Then give them what they want. The words tore from my throat as we rushed toward the elevator. Let me go, and they'll release her. Dante stopped so abruptly that I nearly stumbled into him. His hands gripped my shoulders, and the look in his eyes was terrifying in its intensity. Never. I will burn this entire city to ash before I let them touch you or our child. She's innocent, her children. We'll be orphans if you try to sacrifice yourself for her. He pulled me into the elevator as Marco appeared, armed and alert. Sophia knew the risks when she maintained contact with you. Everyone in your life became a potential target the moment you conceived my child. The elevator descended toward the garage, and with each floor, I felt my old life slipping further away. So this is my fault? This is the world we live in, the world our child will inherit. His hand moved to my stomach, feeling the baby's movement beneath his palm. Which is why there can be no half measures, no compromises, no mercy for our enemies. The garage held 3 identical black SUVs, engines running, armed men positioned around each vehicle. The level of preparation was overwhelming. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment reaction, but a long-planned contingency executed with military precision. Where are we going? Somewhere safe while I handle this situation. Dante helped me into the middle vehicle, Maria sliding in beside me. Marco will coordinate with our people at the docks. By dawn, the Torres problem will be permanently resolved. What about Sophia? Will be returned unharmed once her captors are no longer capable of carrying out their threats. His tone brooked no argument. This ends tonight, Olivia. All of it. The safe house turned out to be a fortress disguised as a suburban mansion, complete with high walls, electronic gates, and guards who tried to look like gardeners, but moved with the alertness of soldiers. As we pulled through the gates, I counted at least 8 men positioned around the property, their weapons barely concealed beneath casual clothing. How long have you owned this place? I asked, as Maria helped me from the vehicle. Since the day you signed the contract, Dante replied. I've been preparing for this possibility since the moment I brought you back into my life. The house was elegant but sparse, furnished like a high-end hotel rather than a home. Everything was functional, expensive, and temporary. A place designed for hiding rather than living. Maria immediately set about making me comfortable, bringing pillows and preparing tea while Dante established himself in what appeared to be a command center. The baby's moving a lot, I said, settling into a chair by the window. Through the bulletproof glass, I could see the city skyline in the distance, normal and peaceful, while my world crumbled around me. Stress, Maria said knowingly. The little one can sense when Mama is upset. Mama? The word felt foreign on my lips. In a few weeks, I would be responsible for another life, a child who would grow up in this world of violence and control. What kind of mother brings a baby into this? The kind who has no choice, Dante said from across the room, where he was coordinating with his people through encrypted phones and laptops. The kind who adapts to ensure her child's survival. Like your mother did? His hand stilled on the keyboard. My mother died when I was 8, shot by a rival family while she was walking me to school. The casual revelation hit me like a slap. In all our time together, he'd never mentioned his mother's death, never explained the origin of the coldness that seemed to run through his veins like ice water. I'm sorry, I whispered. Don't be. It taught me the most important lesson of my life. In this world, sentiment is weakness, and weakness gets the people you love killed. He turned to face me, his expression harder than I'd ever seen it. My father tried to keep her out of the business, tried to give her a normal life. His mercy toward his enemies, his attempts at honor and restraint, cost her everything. So you decided never to show mercy. I decided never to let anyone I cared about pay the price for my choices. He moved closer, kneeling beside my chair so we were eye level. I will not lose you the way my father lost her. I will not let our child grow up without a mother, because I was too weak to do what was necessary. A sharp pain shot through my abdomen, making me gasp and double over. Dante's hands were on me immediately, his touch gentle despite the panic in his eyes. What's wrong? I don't know. It just... Another pain, stronger this time, radiating from my lower back through my entire torso. Oh, God. Maria appeared at my side, her experienced hands checking my pulse and feeling my stomach. How far apart are the pains? This is only the second one, but... I cried out as another contraction hit, far too soon after the previous one. We need to get her to the hospital, Maria said urgently. This baby is coming early. No hospitals. Dante's voice was sharp with command. Too exposed, too many variables we can't control. Mr. Salvatore, she needs medical attention. Then bring the medical attention here. He was already on his phone, barking orders in rapid-fire Italian. Dr. Chen, emergency obstetrics team, full neonatal equipment, 20 minutes or less. Another contraction ripped through me, and I gripped the chair arms so tightly my knuckles went white. Dante, I'm scared. Don't be. He took my hand, his thumb stroking over my knuckles. Everything is going to be perfect. Our child will be born safe, protected, surrounded by people who will die before they let any harm come to either of you. What about Sophia? Marco will handle Sophia. Right now, nothing matters except you and our baby. His phone buzzed, and his expression darkened as he read the message. Luis Torres is dead. Carlos surrendered and gave up Sophia's location. Is she unharmed and on her way home to her children? He kissed my forehead as another contraction built. It's over, Olivia. All of it. Our enemies are gone. Our child is coming, and our life together can finally begin. Our life together? The pain made it hard to think clearly, but something in his tone raised alarm bells. What do you mean? I mean that after tonight, there will be no more questions about your place in my world. No more negotiations or escape plans or dreams of freedom. His eyes held mine as the contraction peaked, his voice gentle but implacable. You'll be the mother of my heir, the center of my empire, the one person in this world I cannot live without. And if I still want to leave someday, then you'll discover that love and possession are often indistinguishable. He helped me breathe through the pain, his hands steady and sure. I told you once that I knew you better than you knew yourself. By tomorrow, when you're holding our child and seeing the future I can give you both, you'll understand that leaving was never really an option. Dr. Chen arrived with a full medical team, transforming the safe house's master suite into a delivery room with efficiency that spoke of careful preparation. As they worked around me, checking monitors and preparing equipment, I realized that this moment had been anticipated and planned for just like everything else in Dante's world. "How long have you been preparing for this?" I asked through gritted teeth as another contraction hit. "Since the moment I saw the pregnancy test results." He squeezed my hand as Dr. A. Chen began her examination. "I've had obstetric teams on standby at 3 different locations, neonatal intensive care units prepared at 2 private hospitals, and pediatric specialists on retainer for any complications. You thought of everything. I always do." He leaned down to kiss my temple as Dr. Chen announced that we were approaching the final stage. "That's why our child will never want for anything. Safety, education, opportunity, power. Everything I never had. What about choice? What about freedom? What about love?" His counter-question came as I bore down with the final push, our child entering the world with a strong, healthy cry that filled the room with life and promise. "What about belonging to something bigger than yourself?" Dr. Chen placed our daughter on my chest, and the moment I saw her perfect face, everything else faded into insignificance. She was beautiful, with Dante's dark hair, and what would probably become his intense eyes, but with features that were entirely her own. "She's perfect," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "She's ours." Dante's voice was thick with emotion as he touched our daughter's tiny hand. "And she'll never know fear or want or powerlessness. She'll grow up knowing she's protected, valued, cherished. She'll grow up knowing she's owned. She'll grow up knowing she's loved." He looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Vulnerable, desperate, completely open. "As are you. As you always will be." Looking down at our daughter, feeling the weight of her small body against my chest, I finally understood the trap he'd laid. It wasn't just legal contracts or financial control or physical imprisonment. It was this, the creation of something so precious that the thought of losing it, of being separated from it, was unbearable. "What's her name?" Dr. Chen asked, preparing the birth certificate. Dante looked at me expectantly, and I realized this was another test, another moment where my choices would reveal my acceptance of this new reality. "Isabella," I said finally. "Isabella Salvatore." "Not Bennett?" "No." I met his eyes, seeing the satisfaction and relief there. "Not Bennett." As the medical team cleaned up and performed their final checks, Dante sat beside us on the bed, his arm around my shoulders, our daughter cradled between us. Through the window, dawn was breaking over the city, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. "Welcome to your new life," he said softly, his lips against my hair. "Welcome home." And as I looked down at Isabella's sleeping face, I realized that home wasn't a place anymore. It was this man, this child, this beautiful, terrible world we'd created together. A world where love and captivity were the same thing, where protection came at the price of freedom, where the cage was so gilded that sometimes you forgot it was a cage at all. I was Olivia Salvatore now, mother to a mafia prince's daughter, bound by love and blood to a man who would kill or die to keep us safe. The woman who had practiced her smile in a coffee shop window was gone forever, replaced by someone stronger, more dangerous, and infinitely more trapped. But as Isabella stirred in my arms and Dante's hand covered both of ours, I found I could live with that trade. In this world of shadows and violence, love was the only certainty, possession the only security. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough.